Hello and welcome everyone to another episode of Advanced React WordPress Theme Development. I'm sure you're enjoying the course, and in today's video we'll do something interesting. We're going to set up Cypress into your Next.js application. Now, what is Cypress? So Cypress is basically the JavaScript end-to-end testing framework. It is really good because it offers great features. For example, you have got time travel option, which means it takes snapshots for your test. You have the feature called debuggability, which means you don't have to keep guessing why your tests are failing. You can directly debug inside of the familiar tools like Chrome DevTools. And also you get the real-time reload. So if you make any changes, then Cypress will automatically reload. Okay, so you've got many features, and it basically you can see the journey of the user as well as to how the user is navigating in the browser. You can put a debugger at a specific point and check it as well. Okay, so you can see more benefits about the Cypress over here, but let's start with setting up Cypress first. So the first thing we're going to do is add the Cypress. So this is the repository that we have, which is Next.js headless WordPress, and we are inside of the feature YouTube tutorial, and we're going to go on to the front end directory. So I'm currently inside of the front end directory, and I'm going to do yarn add cypress -t. -t is to ensure that it gets installed as a dev dependency, because this is only for testing purposes for development. Okay, so now that Cypress is installed, you can install it via npm as well, so you can always change it to npm install cypress -t. And the next thing we're going to do is just add some of the script inside of our package.json. So I'll go into my package.json. Here is my script. I'll put a comma over here. I'll add the Cypress open and Cypress run. I will share with you what each of these do in a moment. Let's just continue with our setup. What we're going to do now is we'll run a script called npm run cypress open, and as you can see that it's running the command which is cypress open, and it has opened all of the tests inside of the browser. And what it's done is basically created a directory called Cypress here, and it has added some example JSON for fixtures. This is where you write your test. You've got some example tests written here. As you can see, these are all of the tests that are available. So I will leave the example test as it is, and we will add our own test. You've got some plugins options here that you can add. Okay, and then you have support. These are the commands, Cypress commands, etc. Okay, so these are all the tests that are available from example directory. As you can see, the integration example, and these are all the example tests. We're not going to worry about these example tests. We're going to write our own. Okay, so next thing we're going to do is go ahead and add the base URL inside of our cypress.json directory. So it's already created a file called cypress.json, and currently it's empty. So all I have to do is just add the base URL, which will be localhost 3000, because that's where my Next.js application will be running. And let me start the development server so it can run npm run dev. Okay, and then the next thing we're going to do is we'll add the data CY attribute to the links and the buttons that we want to test. So currently, if you take a look, if I go to localhost 3000, I've got these links available, which is about, sample page, and if you make the screen smaller, I also have this button for opening and closing the menu, right? So what I want to do basically is I want to test that when the user visits the root URL, the user should be able to navigate to the about page, and also when the user is into mobile view, then user should be able to open the M menu and also navigate to about. So these are the couple of tests that we need to write. Okay, so now what we need to do is basically we need to add the data CY attribute to the elements that we want to grab hold of. Now there are two elements that we want to grab hold of. The first one is the link for the navigation. So I'll put data cy and I'll make it equal to nav item. Okay, and the second one will be the button which is being clicked, which is the M menu button. So just to show you which one that is. So the first one is this link. You can see that, which is going to contain the text about. That's what we want to grab hold of. And second one will be the button, which is this one. Okay, this button right here. So when the user clicks on that, we want to ensure that we test the functionality that when this is clicked, then the M menu opens up, and then there's a link inside of it called about. So we're going to add again a data cy attribute, and we can name this as M menu dash btn button. If you're wondering, why am I adding the data attribute? I mean, can I not grab hold of this element in JavaScript using the class name or the ID? Why am I using data attribute? Well, the reason for this is because if you take a look at the best practices of Cypress, you would know that it talks about use the data attribute to provide context to your selectors and isolate them from CSS and JS changes. So how it helps is that tomorrow, let's say another developer goes ahead and changes the class name, because for some reason we have to change the class name, or even if you want to change an ID for some reason, then it's not good to grab hold of them with the class name, because then our test will break. So the best thing to do is to add the data attribute, and we are going to show that we don't have to touch this data attribute at all. It is not going to interfere with the style of that particular element. So it talks about don't target the element based on CSS attribute like ID, class, and tag. Don't target elements that may change their text content. Add a data attribute to make it easier to target elements. Okay, great. So let's do that, and then we're going to now write the test for this. So I have written a bunch of tests here. Let's start with the first one. So in order for you to write the test, you need to go to the integration folder, and then you can create your test files. So now we can name our test anything that we want. So let's say in this case it'll be nav, but you have to make sure it ends with spec.js. So it'll be .spec.js. Okay, so nav.spec.js, and then if you see, you have to use the function called describe, and then you describe what this test is for. So this is for nav menus, right? And then comma, and then second parameter will be a function. So I'm going to use arrow function, and then we also need to set the context over here. So if you see, we're using this context function. The reason for this is because remember that the M menu won't be really available when it's a larger screen, right? So we want to be able to test both. So let's start with the 720 pixel resolution. So we'll say context and then 720p resolution, and then function inside of it. And after that, as you can see, you need to use before each function. So before each, it's a Cypress function, by the way. And inside of this, you will need to set the viewport. Okay, so in the Cypress object, which is CY, you have different functions available. So for example, you have viewport. Okay, so this is where you need to specify what viewport is going to be. So viewport will be 1280 by 720. Okay, so this is going to check that this is going to run the test inside of this viewport. Now after the before each, you need to again do another test, which will be to visit the home page. So remember, you have to go inside of this context itself. So you'll do describe again, and you'll name it as when you visit home, comma, and then second parameter is the function, and then you can write your test. So test will be it should navigate to home page. Home page will be your root URL. So inside of this, we have a function available in Cypress which is called cy.visit. So this is going to ensure that it's automatically going to go to the home page, which is the root URL. Now inside of this describes callback function, you can write another test which will be describe. So you can keep writing, as many tests as you want inside of that to go with that flow. Okay, so describe nav. Inside of it again you write another test, should navigate to about page, and then again callback function, and then we have a function available inside of cy, a method available, and that is called get. So what do we need to get? Basically what we need to get is the nav item, and remember we can do that with the data cy attribute. So all I have to do is just copy this and put square brackets, paste it here, remove the quotes. Okay, so it gets that item, and then dot, you have to check if it contains that. So contains, it should contain about. If you come over here, you can see that contains, get the DOM element containing the text. DOM elements can contain more than desired text and still match. So this is going to get the element has that text inside of it. Okay, so you're going to check if it contains, and then you're going to click on that, because remember it's a link, right? It's a navigation link. So if you click on this link, it's going to take the user to the next page, like the about page. All right, so the about page. So you put the click, and then you're going to check if the URL includes /about. So cy.url, so it's going to give you the URL of the browser, dot should, and then it should include /about. Okay, so that's what you need to check. So since we've got our test ready, all we have to do now is just do npm run Cypress open. Now remember, you have to run it only once. If you're doing npm run Cypress open, it's automatically going to constantly watch for any changes. So if you make any changes in your test, you don't have to run this command again. It's in the watch mode. So if you click on the nav specs, see what happens. Congratulations, it's working, right? You can see it navigated us to the localhost 3000. Then, so let's go step by step. Let me explain to you what's happening here. So what this before each does is basically it runs before every test. So that's why if you click on when you visit home, which is our next test, okay, you can say describe when you visit home, should navigate to home page. You can see the before each is running, right? It's taking to that viewport, and then it's starting the test. And then it says visit the root URL. So that's what it's doing over here. You can pin it also. You can see DOM snapshot over here, right? So it goes to that home. And then you go to the next one. I'm going to unpin it. Then the next one is describe nav. So it says nav here. And it should navigate to the about page. So to navigate that, this function will run. It's going to go ahead and grab that element, which is this link here. And you can test it right here. Let me put that down. So this one right here, so you can see it's got the about, and then it's going to grab that, and then it's going to check if it contains the about text. So it does in this case, right? If you click on it, again the before each is run, because that's what he said, that it has to be during that viewport. So it's taking us to that viewport, and then it's going to get that. So you see that we are getting that particular element. It's getting that element, and then it's checking if it contains, let me zoom in for you, and it's checking if it contains about, and then it's clicking on it. So let me zoom it and show you. So you can see this red color dot, right? This is a symbol of that it's clicking that link. And once that is, in fact, you can also go before and after, and then it's going to get the URL, okay, and then it's going to check what is expected. It's saying that expected URL is this, so it's going to get the URL. This is the URL /about. It's going to check. It should include /about, so it should include that. It's actually the correct one. That's why it's green. And then it's getting a 200 over here, and the new URL is this one. Okay. Now the next thing we need to do is we also need to add the test so that when it's mobile view. So I'm just going to copy the test for that. I'm not going to write it. Since you know how to write it now, I'll just copy the test. So I'll take another context, and you have to put that inside of the first describe. So you can write like desktop, and then you can write this one like mobile. So I've copied this. The same thing is happening over here as well, except that this was for 720 pixel resolution. This is iPhone 5 resolution, and we are making some change like clicking onto that particular M menu. So let me explain this to you. So you've got before each, same thing, viewport is now iPhone 5. Earlier it was this resolution, so you can also give a name iPhone 5 over here instead of specifying the hard-coded values, and you can get this information from the Cypress documentation, what value you should put. Then you put describe when you visit home, so same test as before, which we did, we visited the home, right? The only thing we're doing over here is we're just tweaking it here. We are checking it should open the M menu. So remember the M menu actually, which is this one has got the data CY attribute. So if you go onto the mobile menu, this is the M menu, right? This button. So this is going to get that particular element and click on it. So this will click on it, and once it's clicked, it's going to check. It's going to go ahead and grab the nav item like it did before. It's going to check if it contains about, click on it, it'll check if the URL then contains /about, and if it does, brilliant, okay, and our test would pass. So let's go ahead and test that. Remember that we didn't have to rerun the npm run Cypress open script because it's already inside of the watch mode and it's constantly watching and making updates. All I have to do now is just click on this nav specs again after stopping it, and you can see that it is running all of the test. It's going into the mobile view now. See that 320 by 568, and all of our test is successful. So you visit the home, and then you see you have before each, and it's checking this resolution, which is 320 by 568, and then is going ahead again checking this information, is getting that hamburger menu button, is clicking on it, so you see the dot, so clicking on it, and then it's running this test again, which is get hold of the nav item. So remember, it gets an array of all of the items because all of the links have this data attribute. This is going to grab hold of the link from that contains about, which is this one. This is going to click on it, so see it got clicked over here, right? And then dot URL is going to get the URL from the nav bar, and then it's going to check if it includes /about, and it does. And then new URL is this one, which is great. Okay, this is how you can test in different screen sizes, and you can write more tests. All the documentations are available. Okay, now you could also generate a video for this. If you go ahead and run this command, I'm going to remove this browser Chrome option here, and I'm just going to show you what that does, okay, in a moment. So instead of running the Cypress open, if you run the Cypress run, so what that does is it runs the Cypress test to completion, and by default Cypress run will run all tests headlessly in an Electron browser. But by passing the flag that I just showed you, which I just removed, you can also open that in browser, and it also records the video and puts them into the Cypress video folder. So let's try that out. If I'm going to run this command, this is going to basically run all the tests which are there in the integration folder, and we don't want that. We don't want all the tests to be run because then it's going to run all the example ones also. So I don't want to do that. So I want to run a specific one. So how do we do that? So we have to do npm run cypress run -- spec, and then we have to give the path to that particular test file. So path will be cypress / integration / the name of the test file. Hit it, and there you go. You can see it, Cypress run spec, and the name of the test that you want to run, and start running it headlessly. You can see there's a sign of Cypress, but it doesn't open. It's running headlessly. That's because of that. And now you can see that it's run all of the tests, the same test over here in the, and all of the tests have passed. Congratulations, which is great. And what is also done is inside of the videos directory, it's created the video of this test. Okay, so let's take a look. So you go to Cypress videos, there's the video, right? nav.spec.js. You hit play and you can see that it runs the test, recorded that test running, and it's clicking on that and it's successful, which is brilliant. Congratulations everyone. I'm sure this has been quite an interesting one. I mean, I absolutely love Cypress because of all the benefits that it offers, and I love the fact that I can actually see the user journey onto the browser itself. It also records it for me, so I can check that later. Now, can I open the browser as well if I go with this option? Yes, I can. So see, if I pass the name of the browser over here, which is browser Chrome, it will also open it into the browser. So let's hit it again and see what happens. Okay, it's going to run that. You can see it opened up the browser automatically, and it went ahead and run all of the tests, which we can actually see. Yep. All right, and then it finished it. Okay, and then it closed it for us, so we can't rerun it over here. The other one was in kind of a watch mode, so it was checking if we made any changes, but this one exited out. You do have different options available that you can pass if you want to make it behave differently, but this is what it does by default. Now, if you're thinking when will it be useful, I would say I'm going to remove this browser Chrome. I'm not going to use that, but just to let you know that when this possibly could be useful would be if you're setting up the Circle CI at that time when your GitHub code is pushed, and if you want to keep a check that your pull request should not be merged until all of the tests have passed, that's when you can use the Cypress run over there, because it's going to run headlessly. Okay, awesome. So I hope you did like the video. If you did, please give a thumbs up and do subscribe to my channel if you aren't already. To support my work, please star my repository like all the beautiful 39 people have, and do follow me on GitHub. My GitHub handle is imranhsayed, and do follow me on Twitter as well. My Twitter handle is Codeytek. Alright, so I'm going to see you in the next video. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.